Five Nights at Freddy's is a rich franchise with a large, colorful cast of characters and multiple different kinds of media to experience. There are so many characters that it actually puts some anime and even fighting game rosters to shame. This got me thinking that the next big game that Steel Wool or another developer working for Scott Games could make is a non-canon fighting game.
You serious?
I'm already aware of the 8-bit style fan-made fighting game, but what I want is a full-on 3D modeled AAA looking comedic fighter that doesn't take itself seriously, where we get to have our favorite characters duke it out for ultimate supremacy. Come on, you're lying if you said you never wanted a game where Roxanne Wolf and Toy Chica settle who is the best and most popular animatronic with hand-to-hand combat. I know there are some people who are watching this video who will think that I'm crazy and that a fighting game wouldn't fit within the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. There's no way that you can logically or canonically explain how certain characters meet up just to have a fight. Like, how could you ever explain John from the Silver Eyes trilogy and Vanny from the Security Breach saga going at it with fisticuffs and have it make sense? But that's the beauty of fighting games. The story doesn't have to be canon, and the characters don't need a logical reason to fight each other. If Steel Wool were to make this game, they could let their imagination run wild and take the piss with the story mode because it would be a non-canon story. They could lean into how silly a lot of things in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is by making it more silly. An online match between two expert fighting game players where one is using Sun and the other Mr. Hippo, where the whole entire time they're just memeing on each other, would be just about the most hilarious and glorious thing in the history of both the fighting game community and Five Nights at Freddy's community. The roster of this hypothetical fighting game could rival Dragon Ball Sparking Zero or any fighting game that have 100 plus characters. How fighting games with over 100 characters work is most of the time they will have different variations of a few characters, and those variations will take up a few slots. The best example is Goku in nearly any Dragon Ball fighting game because you'll have Goku, Super Saiyan Goku, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and Super Saiyan Blue Goku, and each one of these variations will be treated as a separate character with their own movesets. Likewise, in a Five Nights at Freddy's fighting game, you could choose between Freddy Fazbear, Withered Freddy, Nightmare Freddy, Funtime Freddy, and Glamrock Freddy, all with their own moves and voice lines. Hoo boy, Kellen Goff would know how Sean Shamel feels voicing that many different variations of one character in one game. Because my closest friend will most likely be watching this video, I feel obligated to include that even the puppet would have different variations. The Puppet, Phantom Puppet, Nightmarion, and Lefty. Not only would characters from the games be included, but we would also have characters from the books and movies to choose from as well. If you ever wanted to see Charlie go up against Movie Bonnie or Eleanor fight Ballora in the Battle of the Robo-Thoughts, this would be the game for you. This game's roster would do so much for the Five Nights at Freddy's community because it would bring all the different types of fans together to see their favorite characters take on everyone else. Fans who only play the games, fans who only read the books, and fans who only watch the movie will come together to experience this game with each other or watch ridiculous matchup videos on YouTube and comment on them. Speaking of things players get to choose, we would also get to choose stages not just based on locations from the games, but from the books and movie. Since some of these locations have never been fully realized before, it would be nice to see what they actually look like and have some entertainingly dumb fun matches out of them. Like, imagine Movie Afton in his Spring Bonnie costume going up against the Spring Bonnie creature from Into the Pit in front of Charlie's wrecked house from the fourth closet. Or what about Circus Baby in her Hot Charlie form taking on Happy Frog in front of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria from the movie? This all sounds stupid, but that would be the main point. Just to have some silly, dumb fun with friends, family, your favorite characters, and stages. Modders would have a field day with the PC version of this fighting game. Just imagine the kind of custom content they would allow you to add to this game. You could have Super Saiyan 3 Goku fight against Super Animatronic 2 Roxanne Wolf on Grove Street from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Hey, I don't know why this had to happen, but I promise you, I'm gonna find out.
How about Sonic the Hedgehog fighting Toy Bonnie in Andy's bedroom from Toy Story? That's not even getting into the characters and stages from Five Nights at Freddy's that could be modded in if they didn't make it into the official roster. Let's say none of the Phantom animatronics made it into this game's roster and they happen to be your favorites. Yo, the modders got your back, homie. The modders will allow you to add them to the roster or replace those in the roster you don't like with your faves. The same thing can be done with stages if ones you were looking for didn't make it in. Sad that the Bobby Dots apartment didn't become a stage? Well, you can have Glamrock Chica fight the Red Mighty Morphin Power Ranger in that creepy apartment with the power of mods. Mods would keep this game relevant years after the game's release, if not decades after its release. If this game was made with mod support, I wouldn't be surprised if it stayed relevant decades after Five Nights at Freddy's was no longer a thing because of how much mods allow you to transform the game and make it a whole new experience each time you boot it up. If Five Nights at Freddy's ever stopped being relevant and worked on, this fighting game decades later could create a resurgence of interest for a whole new generation of fans, especially with mods. If Steel Wool or whoever were to make this fighting game were to try and do a story mode that sticks with the canonical story of Five Nights at Freddy's, a lot, and I mean a lot of liberties would have to be taken. I don't know about you, but I don't remember a whole lot of, if any, fight scenes during any of the main Five Nights at Freddy's stories. Almost every mainline story would have to change to include playable fight scenes. Like during the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 1, Mike Schmidt would have to spend each of the 4 nights fighting Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Freddy individually before facing off against Golden Freddy as the final boss of that chapter on the 5th night. Yes, I know Mike Schmidt would be fighting the ghosts of murdered children possessing animatronics. I'm not arguing that this take on the story wouldn't be stupid. I'd actually argue that this would be the dumbest version of the story in all of Five Nights at Freddy's history. However, this could open up fans that only consume one type of media in this franchise to others. Like after completing the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 chapter, an optional episode is unlocked where the events of that game is reworked to play out more like the Silver Eyes. So Charlie would be the character you'd control, and William Afton dressed as Spring Bonnie would be the final boss instead of Golden Freddy. This could get people who didn't want to read the Silver Eyes trilogy before to want to pick up those books and give them a chance. After meeting certain conditions, you could have another episode unlocked where the first game's events play out like the movie, so you get the movie characters and location to play as. Yes, this all sounds contrived, but welcome to the story of fighting games, where any excuse is made to have characters fight each other. I think the best thing about this fighting game having a story mode is that it could get every Five Nights at Freddy's fan up to speed with what's going on in both the lore and story in all its facets. I think my favorite part of the story mode would be when we get to the security breach chapter and it retells the story to make it look like Glamrock Freddy beat the oil out of all of his friends, the staff bots, and Vanny, so Gregory could do what he needed to make them all shattered. The more I talk about this potential fighting game, the more I want it to be real. If anyone from Steel Wool is watching this and has connections to anyone that makes fighting games, get them on the phone. This will print you money. So what kind of art style would this fighting game have? I believe cell shading would make this game look timeless, attract a lot of players, and mesh all the different character and stage styles together. If we tried to mesh the near photorealistic look of Scott's characters with the Pixar Bioshock look of Steel Wool's characters, with the photorealistic look of the movie characters, with the cel-shaded look of the book characters, since the devs would have to look at the comic adaptations for a source, all of these different art styles would make the game look like a jarring mess. If everyone and everything were masked over with a cel-shaded look, they would all fit in more easily with each other. I know there are some people who wouldn't want a cel-shaded Five Nights at Freddy's game. Some people turned on Five Laps at Freddy's just because of its art direction. However, if the developers put as much time and effort into the appearance of the characters as the devs of Sparking Zero had, then this game would look absolutely beautiful. It would also help players and theorists easily digest that this is a non-canon game, since some of the movie characters would be using the likeness of the actors. The cel-shaded art style would help smooth over things if actors don't give permission to use their likenesses. The gameplay should be something more down to earth and not have anyone throwing energy blasts or energy balls at each other then screaming while powering up. I know I said this game would be silly and dumb, but it shouldn't be so over the top that fans are yelling at the screen, "Bonnie can't do that! Since when did he have a super form?" Think of it more like Tekken or Street Fighter, where characters have abilities based on what they did in the games they came from or what the books said they could do, and being able to fully move around the map so you can sidestep some attacks, instead of being locked to a 2D plane. Destructible environments are also a must to help sell the impact of some characters' moves. Now obviously weaker or more human characters like Vanny or Charlie wouldn't be able to destroy anything in the stage, but bigger characters like Nightmare Freddy, I could totally see wrecking things as he sends out his Freddo army. Also, yes, if a character appeared in FNAF World, it would be fair to have some of their moves from that game be incorporated into their moveset here. Watching Bonnie push back his opponents or block attacks with the power of rock and roll would easily make him one of my mains. What would this non-canon fighting game be called? Well, the title of Five Nights at Freddy's Fighters is kinda catchy. We all know that Steel Wool or whoever would make this game can do better. Then again, Steel Wool named the current game they're working on Secret of the Mimic, so a more appropriate title would be something more like Five Nights of Fighting, since most chapters of the story mode would be dealing with the classic 2D games that span 5 nights, and since you would be fighting the characters of these games during those 5 nights, well, there you go. If you made it this far in the video, I want to hear from you. Would you pick this game up if it were made? Which characters would you want on the roster, and who'd you main out of all of them? What stages would you like to have characters fight in? Do you think this would bring the Five Nights at Freddy's community together, or rip it apart? Would you like the cel-shaded art style, or would you prefer everyone have a more Pixar 3D animated look? I think the 3 characters I would main in this hypothetical fighting game would be Bonnie, Nightmare Freddy, and Charlie. Fighting as Bonnie would be awesome because he'd attack everyone with his guitar like a sword and have the power of cheesy riffs that could stun enemies. Nightmare Freddy would be my tank, able to take damage and command the Freddles to attack from afar, but because of his slow movement speed, he'd be an easy target to land hits on. Charlie would be my speedster, able to dodge attacks quickly and lay the smackdown pretty quickly up close, but not able to tank too much damage. I don't think we're going to get a game like this for a while, especially with Steel Wool currently working on Secret of the Mimic, but I also thought before that we would never get a Five Nights at Freddy's racing game. Then the demo for 5 Laps at Freddy's came out. So I guess I could get my hopes up that something like a fighter could happen, but in the meantime, I'm just thankful you made it to the end of the video, because that makes you my shining star.
'Cause when the time has come and gone